Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and today we're going to be doing Unit 8 Learning Target 8. So we're going to be talking about multiplying radical expressions. So that's kind of our goal for today, and we're going to be doing excuse me, a little bit more in depth than we were doing yesterday. So first of all, let's take a look and let's review. When we had two things being multiplied together like this, we did something that I like to call the box method. So we put x plus 5 going down this way, 2x minus 7 going across this way. Well, x times 2x is 2x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x. 5 times 2x is 10x. And 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. So then I want to write all of those terms out. So I have 2x squared plus 5x minus 7x, or 10x, sorry. This is really hard to see. So I'm going to have 2x squared minus 7x plus 10x minus 35. Well, the only thing I need to do is combine those middle two terms. 10x minus 7x is 3x, and then minus 35. So that's how you can go ahead and do that one. And number 2 is going to be similar. So again, we're going to set up our box. And we're going to have 3x squared and then minus 2x here. And then I'm going to have 5x and 3 here. So we're going to take and we're going to multiply coefficients. So we're going to do 3 times 5, which is 15. X to the first times x squared, which is x cubed. And then we're going to do 3 times 3, which is 9. And then the x squared is going to stay there. And then I'm going to have 5 times 5x times a negative 2x, which is a negative 10, and then x squared. And then negative 2x times 3 is a negative 6x. So writing out all the terms that I have 15x to the third plus 9x squared minus 10x squared minus 6x. So I need to combine my x squared terms, and that's going to end up being negative x squared. So that's your final answer for number 2. Now taking a look at number 3, it's going to be the same thing, except this time my box is going to be 3 long. So I have x minus 3 here, and I have 2x squared, 6x minus 10. So now I'm going to multiply into the box. X times 2x squared is 2x to the third. 6x times x is 6x squared. Negative 10 times x is negative 10x. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6x squared. Negative 3 times negative 6x is negative 18x. And negative 3 times negative 10 is positive 30. So when you go ahead and you add that up, so we have 2x cubed, and then we're going to have 6x squared, and then from here we're going to have a minus 6x squared. And then I'm going to have minus 10x minus 18x, and then plus 30. Well, when I combine those two terms, they're going to cancel out. So then I'm going to have 2x cubed, negative 10x minus 18x is negative 28x, and then finally I'm going to have plus 30. So that right there is your final answer for number 3. Now let's take a look at what we know about multiplying radicals. So the first thing we want to do is to distribute. So that means we're going to take and we're going to multiply that radical into the parenthesis that follows. And then we're going to multiply the coefficients outside the radical together, and then multiply the parts underneath the radical together. And then you're going to simplify the part that's underneath the radical. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what that would look like. So taking a look at number 4. So first thing I want to do is multiply. So I'm going to multiply my numbers since they're both underneath the radical. 20 times 6 is 120. X squared times x to the first is x cubed. So now I want to break down 120. Well, I see that it ends in 0, so I can use 12 and 2. So that's going to be 4 and 3. This is going to be 5 and 2, and 4 breaks down to 2 and 2. So underneath the radical, I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 5, and then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 x's. So I have one pair of 2's, and then I'm going to have one pair of x's. So on the outside, I'm going to have 2 times x, which is just 2x, and then I'm going to have 2 times 3 times 5, which is 30, and then I also have that lingering x. So my final answer is 2x times the square root of 30x. Now we're going to do the same thing for number 15. So when we're doing number 15, we're going to take 18 and we are going to multiply it by 3. So I'm going to do 18 times 3. And then we're going to get 54. So I'm going to get 54 underneath the radical. Then I have a squared times a squared. Now remember, when you multiply a squared times a squared, you're going to add those exponents and you're going to get a to the 4th power. So then we want to take and we want to break down 54. Well, 54 I can break down to 6 and 9. And this is going to break down to 2 and 3, and 9 is going to break down to 3 and 3. So underneath my radical, I have 2 times 3 times 3 times 3. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 A's. So I have 1 pairs of 3's that I can pull out. And there should be a 4 on the outside, sorry, because we're going to take 1 times 4, so there should be that 4 on the outside down here. And then we can take 2 pairs of A's. So we have that 4 that was on the outside from the beginning, times our 3 that we're taking out, times 2 A's. And then left underneath the radical is 2 times 3. So now we're going to go ahead and simplify that. 4 times 3 is 12. A times A is A squared, and then left underneath the radical is 6. So we get 12A squared square root of 6. So let's take a look at number 6. So for number 6, we're going to multiply the outsides and then multiply the insides. So negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply 7 times 21 because they're both on the inside. Well, 7 times 21 is 147. And I'm going to have m cubed and r squared. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to split up 147. I can split that into 3 and 49. 49 breaks down to 7 and 7. So I still have that negative 18 on the outside, but then underneath the radical I have 3 times 7 times 7. And then I have 1, 2, 3 m's and 2 r's. So I have a pair of m's, a pair of r's, and a pair of 7's. So I'm going to take and I'm going to multiply those on the outside. So I'm going to have negative 18 times 7 times m times r. And then left underneath the radical is 3m. So then I can take and I can multiply negative 18 times 7 is negative 126. And then I'm going to have mr times the square root of 3m. So that's your final answer for number 6. Let's take a look at number 7. So now we're going to take and we're going to be distributing in. So notice that square root of 3, that 3 is underneath the radical, so it can only be multiplied by other things underneath the radical. So when I take the square root of 3 times the square root of 5, that's going to end up giving me the square root of 15. Now here's where it gets tricky. When I take the square root of 3 times a negative 4, I'm taking that negative 4 and then I'm going to multiply it by the square root of 3. I cannot multiply those two numbers together because one's on the outside and one's on the inside. So last but not least, I like to write my radicals in descending order. So I get negative 4 square root of 3 plus the square root of 15. So that's your final answer for number 7. Taking a look now at number 8. So for number 8, again, we're going to take and we're going to multiply. This negative 3 gets multiplied with everything on the outside. That square root of 3 gets multiplied by everything underneath the radical. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, and then you have the square root of 3. That square root of 3 didn't get multiplied by anything because there is no radical there for it to get multiplied to. So negative 3 times, or square root of 3 times square root of 6, and then we're going to get the square root of 18. So now I'm almost done. I just have to break down that square root of 18, and I forgot my negative 3 because when I multiply this 3 times this 6, I still have to have that negative 3 on the outside. So I'm going to break 18 down to 9 and 2 and 3 and 3. So I'm going to get negative 6 square root of 3 plus negative 3 times the square root of 2 times 3 times 3. So then I have a pair of 3's that I can take out. So I'm going to do negative 6 square root of 3 minus 3 times 3, and left underneath the radical is 2. So I'm going to get negative 6 square root of 3, then minus 9 square root of 2. Then I'm just going to flip around the order because that's how I like to look at it. So I get negative 9 square root of 2 minus 6 square root of 3. And that's your final answer for number 8. Let's take a look at number 9. So number 9 we're going to take and we're going to distribute in that square root of 14x. Well, when we multiply it by the 3 is just going to come on the outside of that 14x. They can't be multiplied together because one's underneath the radical and the other isn't. Then we're going to take a look, and now when I multiply square root of 14x times the square root of 2x, I can actually multiply underneath. Well, 14 times 2 is 28. X times x is going to give me x squared. So now I need to work on simplifying 28. So I have 4 and 7, and then 2 and 2. So this one's going to stay the same. 3 square root of 14x cannot be simplified anymore. Then underneath the radical for 28x squared, I have 2 times 2 times 7 times x times x. So I have a pair of x's and I have a pair of 2's. So that's going to be 3 square root of 14x. Then it's going to be minus 2 times x on the outside, and then the thing left underneath the radical without the partner is a 7. So I'm going to write that as a negative 2x square root of 7 plus 3 square root of 14. So this is your final answer for number 9. Now, let's take a look at number 10. So when you're simplifying number 10, this 2 square root of 3 is going to be distributed into the first. The square root of 2 is going to be distributed into the second. So 2 square root of 3 times 1. Well, that's really just going to end up being 2 square root of 3. That's not going to change at all. Then when we take it, we multiply 2 times the square root of 5. The 2 is going to stay the same. And then the square root of 5 times the square root of 3 is going to be the square root of 15. Then, under our next one, we're going to take the square root of 2 and we are going to multiply it by 6. 2 times the square root of 6, square root of 2 times 6, well, that's just going to be 6 square root of 2. Then we're going to take, and when we multiply the square root of 2 times negative 3, the negative 3 is going to stay the same. And then we're multiplying underneath the radical. Okay, so we're going to do 2 times 5, which is 10. So now we want to take a look, and there's no terms that can be combined. There's no like radicals. So I'm just going to go from smallest to largest. So I'm going to start with 6 square root of 2, and then I'm going to have 2 square root of 3, and then 2 square root of 5, minus 3 square root of 10. So this right here is your final answer for number 10. Next, let's take a look at number 11. So this one we actually need to use the box method on. So I'm going to have 4 times 7 square root of 2 times 5 minus 3 square root of 6. And now we're just going to be multiplying into the box. So to start off with, I'm going to do 5 times 4, which is 20. And then I'm going to take 5 times 7, which is 35, and then square root of 2. Then I'm going to do 4 times negative 3, which is negative 12, square root of 6. Then negative 3 times 7, which is a negative 21, square root of, now I need to multiply underneath the two radicals, which is 6 times 2, which is 12. So now I'm going to write out all the terms that I have. So I have 20 plus 35, square root of 2, minus 12, square root of 6, minus 21, square root of 12. So the only thing I have left to do is to break down that 12. So 12 is going to break down to 4 and 3, and then it's going to break down to 2 and 2. So let's go ahead and let's write that out. So I have 20 plus 35 square root of 2 minus 12 square root of 6 minus 21 times the square root of 2 times 2 times 3. So I can go ahead and I can take out a pair of 2's. So I have 20 plus 35 square root of 2 minus 12 square root of 6 minus 21 times 2, because we're taking that pair of 2 outs, times the square root of 3. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply these two out, and I know that's going to give me 42. So now I want to put it in descending order. So my smallest radical is that. So I'm going to do 35 square root of 2 minus 42 square root of 3 minus 12 square root of 6, and then last but not least is that plus 20. So that right there represents your final answer for number 11. So that concludes your note video for today. Go ahead and show me a completed note sheet when you are done. Thanks for listening.